Okay, we're going to dedicate the class Lilui Nishmas Naomi Bas Yaakov, who the breakfast has been sponsored in her merit, and also with the schus of Gillis family that we have here today in the merit of Chaya Chana Bas David Ben Zion, and in honor of Partina Simona Bas Chanoch. So we're told, and we often read the parasha, or this specific parasha, before Rosh Hashanah. And Rabbi Nosson brings out some very fundamental pieces of information. Focuses in on the verse that says, Loi b'shamayim hi, mi yaleh lanu hashamayim la. It says that the request from Hashem is not in the heavens. No one's asking us to go into the heavens. What does it mean that the request that Hashem has from us is not in the heavens? Feels like it is. Feels like we're constantly trying to jump into the heavens. So Rabbi Nosson says like this: Bevadai, afilu im loy haya efshel lekayim es haTorah ki im al yidei shi'alu l'shamayim haynu lasos tekef avodas gvoyos moed shem bechinas shamayim. Now, he says, and he starts off by saying the following. If Hashem says to us, He wants us to go up into the heavens, we can't come along and say, sorry Hashem, we can't do it. What does that mean? It means that if Hashem tells us, Yehuda, that He wants us to come into the heavens, there's no question that we can do it. If a person is commanded to engage with the Torah, they can't come along and they say, you know what, I can't do it. It's not within my capacity. If a person considers in one moment that Hashem created you and He created the world and He created the Torah, a person can't come along and say, sorry Hashem, you created me defective. Here is the requirement, but I'm created defective, God forbid, and I'm unable to achieve what you want from me. So what we see here is the first principle that he comes out to say is whatever is incumbent upon us, a person has to realize they have the energy and they have the strength to do so. So much so that if a person comes to Shemaim and they didn't have all of the things necessary to fulfill what they needed to fulfill from a Parnasa level, from a circumstantial level, they have claims against God. So Hashem can by definition not give us a scenario that we are lacking in order to be able to fulfill what we need to fulfill. And that's the entirety of the Torah. No discounts. Now, I just want to emphasize, as he's emphasizing here, that means the top of the top of the top notch. Every single human being can reach the top notch. Not not in terms of their level of a plebeian state, but every single human being is able to reach a very, very, very high level that's referred to as Shemaima, that's referred to as the heavens. Every single one of us has an obligation to reach that state of upper level, the highest level that we can reach in our lives.
What about someone who's mentally ill?
Well, according to that level, they're probably they're exempt, but they're innately created with a high level.
There are people who are exempt, so when he's talking to you, it's saying the people, it's kind of saying the people who like already have it, you know, but it's kind of saying, but that doesn't mean everyone.
There's a difference with a mental.
If someone
there's halachas that the Torah sets into play that if a person has.
So you're saying it's everyone. Oh, but there are exceptions. So then it's not everyone. It's like if you have it, then it's you. But that's not everyone.
Well, everyone within the capacity of what the Torah is referring to. So now I used to engage with a woman on Fridays who used to help her in Israel to clean her apartment for Shabbos. And she was blind. Now there are halachas, there are laws according to those who are blind. The Torah comes into that space and says, now an individual is within that state, how do they engage and what's incumbent upon them? But where a person is not within that framework, where a person is mentally able, they can't come along and say, you know what, I don't feel like this fits into my life. No, it fits into your life. The question is, how do you fit into its life? How do you how do you allow yourself to evolve to fit that space? Now, certain individuals just can't. You can't grow a leg if you've, God forbid, have lost a leg. There are certain realities that a person can't overcome. But he says like this, and this is a fundamental point, which was really the essence of this teaching. Ach Hashem Yisbarach chafetz chesed hu, v'hu yoida yitrein zacho ki afar anachnu v'yetzer leiv adam ram enurav, v'yesha lekol adam v'aschel teike b'avodes gevoyes ad shamayim. He says like this, listen to this. He says Hashem knows, and Hashem engages with us from a space of love, and Hashem engages with us from a space of kindness. Yes, He wants us to reach the heavens. Yes. But at the same time, He recognizes that we cannot reach the heavens if our feet are not grounded on the earth. And a person is unable. Love kol adam zoicha afilu b'soif yama v'levodes gevoyes. Some individuals, he says, as Daniel, you mentioned, don't even have the capacity to reach ever one day in their life when they are able to reach the heavens. Unfortunately, there's a reality that certain individuals aren't able to reach the heavens, even one day in their life. Listen to what he says. Do you think that Hashem looks at those individuals and He says, you know what? Not interested. I don't want this. You have individuals that are perfectionists, and it's only when it's unbelievably perfect do they accept it. But when a person has tried and they've tried their best and it's not perfect, thank you, Tendai, Chaim, they're not interested. You put the tequila in. Tendai, can you take a photo for us? Just the chevra here. Raul will give you his phone.
Take it from there with the sun.
So he says, God forbid, if a person would come along and say, you know what, I'm not one of those people. I'm not one of those people that at this point in time in my life am able or feel like I'm able to reach the heavens, even though we all should be striving for the heavens. He says, listen to this, and this is a fundamental point. And in fact, I think this point is key in order to give us an access into the heavens. Okay, let's go, man. Hurry up with the photos, man. Stop complicating this. Smile, everyone. Pretend you're listening.
Take a selfie, Tenda.
Maybe one from there, one from here.
Maybe one go up on the roof.
Come into the heavens, Tenda, if you can go up into the heavens. Yeah. So listen to this, Chevra.
That's enough now. Stop it.
Okay.
Stop it now.
So he says like this. Imkain avda tikva. He says we might lose our hope. We might think to ourselves, gosh, I don't feel like I can reach this level where I'm so perfect, and I don't feel like I can reach this level where I'm in the heavens. So a person can just chuck the whole thing out. And this essentially is pertaining to the majority of the world. Understand this. It's not in the heavens, which means the following. Hashem wants us to be on the level that we are at, which means Hashem wants us to be pshutois. Hashem wants us to be simple. Hashem wants us to consider, what am I able to do now in the most decent way possible, in the most connected way possible. I'll give you an example, okay? Personal example.
Be realistic.
You have to be realistic. Give me a personal example. I have a particular Seder, which means a structure of learning Torah every day. And thank God I have the capacity that I've set up for myself, that I'm able to teach and engage in the things that I want to teach and I want to learn. But I have the motivation of also teaching it, and that motivation of teaching it also grounds me in having to be there. Because I know in myself, if I don't have a chavrusa, I don't have to teach it, life becomes very, very, very overwhelming and pulls you out of those spaces. Now, I'll tell you, in certain circumstances, where, let's say, I'm very busy and I can't come into a situation where I can teach Gemara or teach Halacha, or let's say, God forbid, I'm not feeling well that day. Let's say I have a cold and I'm not in a structure that I'm usually in. So I'll sometimes beat myself up. I want to sit down, I want to learn, but I can't focus and I can't engage and I can't connect and I can't feel it. Now, what do I do in that moment? Does Hashem look at me and say, you know what, you should be pushing yourself harder, you should be pushing yourself higher? Or do I say to myself, you know what am I able to do now? What can I do right now to the best of my ability? What can I find that I can learn? There was a certain rabbi in Israel who he's experienced a lot of yisurin, a lot of affliction. His children, a lot of things happened to him in his life. And you know what he did? He ended up learning, he changed his Seder to learning Agadata. You know what Agadata is? It's all the stories in the Gemara. It's what you teach the kids. There's a special book that they came out with. That's all the stories in the Gemara, and that's what you teach the kids. Beautiful, unbelievably deep stories. And obviously on his level, he was learning them on a very deep level. But he said to himself, well, that's one of them. Yeah, there's something called the Ein Yaakov. Ein Yaakov took all the stories. That's even known. That's another level. The
rabbi that specializes
in stories. Yes. So listen to this. He said, at this point in time, I'm unable to focus. I'm unable to engage. But in myself, I know what I'm able to do. And what I'm able to do perfectly and properly is right now. I can find these stories and that really grips me, and that's what I'm going to engage with. And that's my first step. Hashem wants us to look at ourselves and say, again, we can't come to this and say we're going to be lazy. We can't come along and say, you know what, I'm just, I'm giving this to you, Hashem. I'm not really putting in my bit. We have to look at ourselves and say, what is our first step? How do we ground ourselves in order to get to the heavens? Hashem wants us to do what we can do on our level. If you want to sit in the corner and speak, that's not really the level that Hashem wants.
Well, kind of for Lawrence it is.
For Lawrence, it's his level, we'll accept it, but if you can move up over one corner, please.
For Shabbos.
Now listen to this. This is one of the biggest steps. As we know by Yaakov Avinu, it says, Sulam mutzav artzav v'roisha megia hashamayma. There was a ladder. And what did it say about the ladder? It says that the ladder was established in the ground and its head reached the heavens. And he says that is the symbol of how a person has to be or is able to be within the spiritual capacity. We can't have our heads in the heavens. We need our feet on the ground in the most basic, simple way. Hashem wants us to be real with ourselves. Yes, Hashem wants us to go up those rungs, but we have to be real with where our footing is. He says, go slowly from drega to drega. Find where you are and connect yourself there. Don't overwhelm yourself with an area or a level that you're not in, but wherever you are, have proper footing and standing in it.
Surprising, by the way, to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur when you're taking on things.
Totally.
Not to be completely unrealistic in terms of...
Exactly. שאין אדם צריך להסתכל בתחילה עבודת שעה למיד למדרגה גבוהה, שזה בחינס כי לא בשמיים היא. That's what we say, shetar gileinu. What's the word shetar gileinu mean? Accustom us. But what it is, if you think about all of the most important things in life, we have goals. Those goals are shemaima. Those goals are in the heavens. Essentially, those are the things we're striving for. But everything that we have as a goal needs to start off in a simple, basic way that you acclimatize yourself to that goal. If you think about the simple capacity of exercise, you have a goal. You want a six-pack, you want to be able to run 5K, whatever it is. But how do you ground yourself in the space that you're in right now? I've been trying to tell my father-in-law to, start exercising. And I asked him, what have you been? He says he bought some bands, and he's doing like a shtickle this and a shtickle that, Gewaldig! On that level, unbelievable, great start. Now what's the next step? But understand that Hashem doesn't want us to be disingenuous to who we are. And at the same time, Hashem wants us to take simple, fundamental steps to reach our goals, because otherwise it's impossible. So same too within our spiritual capacity. We don't just say, you know what, I give up. I'm not doing this thing anymore. It's just impossible. Or I'll just do it on the side as a 20%er. No, this is 100%. But it's about 100% as where I am right now in my life. Now this is the key. Listen to this. If you want to ask yourself, how do I take the next step? What is the next step on my rung? You know what he says? It's what's in front of you now. Meaning, what's in front of you right now? This is the big mistake that people make. They think, what does it mean to be spiritual or connected? They start thinking a year ahead, they start thinking a week ahead, they start thinking a day ahead. No. He says the message of this is, what is the rung that you're standing on right now? The Mishnah Berurah asks, if you had one day that you were stuck in prison, that you could be freed to go home, what day would it be? Shabbos? Maybe Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur? Today. The day that you're in is the day to be freed. Today's Shabbos.
Sleeping.
So to be freed on the day that you're in is the key. That's what we don't understand. Spirituality is not found in the next moment. It's not a concept. It's a reality. And the reality is in front of us right now. What can it mean? Last week we spoke about being present, and we spoke about the concept of being mindful and experiencing Hashem in the moment that you're in. For many of us, we don't even get up the rungs because we don't even appreciate that first step. First step is breathing into the moment that you're in. That's the first rung. That's the first grounding of our ladder. And then after that, you ask yourself, what is becoming of me now? What do I need to do now? What does Hashem want from me now? And in that simplicity, a person is able to take those steps up the ladder. And to conclude, he says, Ki karo v'lecha dava me'od. Ki b'yem asa torah v'avodah shata tzarech lekayim ata k'fi yirotzon yisbarach hu karo v'lecha me'od. Ki ein ata tzarech rak liskab la'ales medrega le'medrega hasmucha. Now he says, if you access spirituality with this technology, he says you'll notice that spirituality is something that is not separate from you. You'll notice it's one of the most innate parts of who you are. It's about discovering your most natural self. It's just about bringing that out and developing that out. It says your mouth and in your heart to do. He says, you know what the two most important weapons or tools that a person has? Two most important weapons and tools that a person has that grounds them and puts them into a space of presence are, he says, the mouth and the heart. And when a person uses their mouth and heart for Torah, i.e. the study of Torah, and their mouth and heart for the prayer and engaging with those spaces, those two things are there to ground us into where we are. Those two things, he says, not only ground us, but they cool off something called the heat of our hearts. The heat of our hearts is what causes us to become frazzled. When a person uses the waters of Torah and uses the waters of Tefillah, it's about cooling the heart. Once the heart is cooled down, if you think about a vehicle, if the engine overheats, it's a very dangerous space. You need the water to cool down the engine in order to be able to function. Same too in ourselves. Sometimes our hearts become so overheated that we can't even ground ourselves and connect. So with Torah and Tefillah, it cools the heart to be able to then take that next step. And that's how he ends off, that if a person doesn't have that, they get drawn to taiva Yisraelis, to negative drives, to negative things that pull them out of themselves. And not only that, that comes along to then cool off your heart when it comes to holy matters, when it comes to being present, when it comes to being connected. Is called Divrei Torah. So to conclude, we said like this, that Hashem gives us an analogy of a ladder in order to understand that the spiritual realm is not something in the heavens. The spiritual realm, even though we have to strive in our lives to be very, very elevated and strive in our lives for greatness, Hashem wants every single one of us to be great people, where we are able to look back at our lives and say, you know what, I'm so proud of myself that I was able to strive in this capacity, that I really put my all into this. As it says, when the Yetzer Hara is shechted to the tzaddikim, it appears as a massive mountain, and to the Rashaim, to the wicked, it appears as a strand of hair. And some say all it took is just to take that strand of hair out of a cup, and now you can consume it. It's a very simple act, nothing very intertwined. For the righteous, it's like a mountain. I have to climb this mountain, I have to engage with this mountain. But what it's saying to us is every single one of us has to strive for greatness. That's a given. And greatness not within this world, but greatness within our deeper spiritual world. That is what we are here for. But at the same time, the unbelievable, unique, seeming paradox is it all starts off with simplicity. It all starts off with the first step, and it's a billion first steps. You don't go up that mountain in one go. You go up that mountain systemically with a number of spaces that you're engaging with, if you think about a person climbing a mountain. And that is what Hashem wants from us. Every single moment, every single step needs to be grounded and needs to be within our auspice of ability, and within being 100% present in that space and giving it our all. But at the same time, not being stuck on that rung. We have to take the next step constantly in life to understand what is it that we have as becoming of ourselves and as our greater selves. So please, God should be with bracha.